Hello. So this is my updated version of the node. Here's the code. I'm going to preface this by saying that I really haven't worked on this that much recently. I only really was able to grind a bunch tonight and look at some of the instructions over the last few days. I've just been pretty busy with other classes, and I don't have a great knowledge of JavaScript, TypeScript, networking in general. So I'm kind of working through the instructions and trying to understand what they mean kind of as I go. So I really haven't changed much from the last time, from the last version of the node. But I am working on at least the handshake part, so it's interpreting messages. From what I understand of JavaScript, when it sends a message, it's doing the JSON canonicalization. I've still split it across client and server just because that makes it, I guess, a simpler case to test. I don't really understand how the nodes are kind of supposed to communicate later on over a network. But I have both of them just running on Kali Linux under WSL. Same kind of setup as last time. If I call the node, I've compiled and verified the GPT code and made a few changes to make sure it's doing the things I want it to. If I run the node, it asks for server or client. I answer server. It's created a server. And it's going to keep listening for connections. Now if I run it again on a separate, I guess, tab, I'm not really sure what you'd call this. It is unfortunately also named node.js, and the command to run it is also node. So it's a kind of weird intersection of names. But anyway, if I run a second node, call it a client, it will connect to the server. It will send a message. The server will respond with another hello message as long as it parses it correctly. And I'm having it just print out most of this to the user. Then the client will exit after it's successfully established a connection. Meanwhile, on the server end, the server will listen for incoming client connections continually. When it receives one, it'll print out what it gets after verifying that it's correct. I maybe need to make a version just to test the invalid error messages, but it does at least verify, and it wouldn't be saying valid message if it wasn't checking that based on the source code. Yeah, it validates. Actually, this is client. But it's the same thing. It validates, informs the user that the connection has been established, and then ends. Otherwise, it would tell the user that it received an invalid message. And I think the server's above. Yeah. So the server will also validate and then respond to the client with its own message. And so that's what we see on the client side. Once it receives a valid response message, it just exits. The server stays open though, so if I repeat this command and run another client, it's basically printing out the same thing because it did the exact same thing. On the server side, now there's some more input, or some more output because it received some more input from more clients. And I can keep going, one after the other, and when we come back to the server page, it's received a few inputs and responded to each of them and printed the output to the user. This isn't a lot so far. I've kind of been struggling to work on this project between a bunch of other things I've had going on. But it does work. And at least I'm getting somewhere.